Are you both aware of the nature of the proffer? Kiosk to do his phone, and that he was like basically saying I committed a crime, but I guess it's not because Berkowitz has something to do with it.
Yeah.
Proffer. So was Chief Berkowitz something to do with the proffer?
They're not, Sam. Sorry. I will not. Let me just say, they cannot.
No. They cannot because they're on the defense. See, that's the thing that you don't consider.
Just because little Colin didn't have an instant motive or motive at all, it doesn't mean that he didn't do it.
Proffer.
No further questions of this witness, Your Honor.
I'll see you for 1 minute over here at Sidebar before we begin.
Get your asses up here for a sidebar.
This is getting into the proffer. I'm sorry. You're not getting into the proffer, are you?
I was going to, yes. At some point, I'm going to ask him about the proffer. And I was going to ask to approach first. I think it's exceedingly important that the jurors understand that he...
Do we know anything about that proffer?
I know that it was...
I don't think the proffer means what counsel thinks it means.
Well, the point is he's represented by counsel, right? So we're going to have a voir dire, or at least, unless you can show me that that proffer has nothing to do with his testimony here, I'm not letting it in.
The only thing I'll ask him about it certainly has a lot to do with his testimony here, because the proffer was obviously the subject matter. The only question is, do I style it as a proffer? I wasn't going to ultimately say, did you give an interview or a statement? And in that interview, you knew that you were testifying under a grant of immunity. If the court doesn't want me to, then I will follow the court's instructions.
Not with that foundation. And I know you're in a hurry to get this done, and I don't want that to interfere with anything. Is his lawyer here today? Do we know?
Who did you come here today with, Mr. Higgins?
Who did I travel to the courthouse with?
Who did you meet here?
An attorney, my attorney.
Is there a reason that you felt compelled to bring an attorney with you for your testimony as a witness in a homicide investigation?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You brought your attorney with you who's sitting right behind you, correct?
That is not my attorney.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were his attorney. My mistake. Where's your attorney?
I don't know. He might be in the courthouse.
Is he in the building?
I don't know where he physically is right now.
He's right here. That's a question I'm going to ask him.
Oh, about his lawyer?
Right.
So not until after lunch, and he's got a right to talk to his lawyer about this. I see a hearing here at Sidebar. It's not as simple as we've said. And from what you said is the foundation, I don't see any. So I need to explore a little more, and...
It's not a big part of my cross.
All right, so you decide.
I'll decide on the fly. I certainly won't do anything without approaching you first.
Okay.
Is it possible that we could do a 45-minute lunch instead of an hour?
I was thinking that. So let's see where you go.
Jackson pining to get back to his young new wife there, right? Because the reason he's rushing through this cross of the killer is because he has a scheduled anniversary date with his wife. Am I wrong?
Is that what it was? I know he wasn't there that Tuesday, but do you know that that's...
For some reason, yeah, because we know that Alan Jackson takes a vacation day on the second day that Brian Higgins is on the stand.
Formal interview, you were asked about Brian Albert and his reputation, were you not?
Oh, you're going to like this one.
Yes.
You indicated in that formal interview that even Chief Berkowitz was
Objection.
quote, a little afraid of Brian Albert.
All right, so that is the objection sustained. That's stricken. I'll see you at Sidebar.
Get your asses up here for a sidebar.
Your Honor, I don't see how. First of all, the wrong witness. Secondly, as far as whatever, a number of different things. So it's attempting to attack character and suggest some sort of bad act of a witness who's not even testifying on the stand when these questions weren't asked of the witness when he was here and when he was testifying on the stand. That was a subject of a motion in limine that was allowed. It was completely inappropriate, completely irrelevant, and I ask for a limiting instruction to be given to the jury at this time in regard to this.
I like your lally. What type of limiting instruction?
Questions are not evidence because essentially what counsel is doing is testifying from his questions as to the facts that these incidents allegedly occurred.
But you know he can't testify. Even Chief Berkowitz knew that his reputation, and you know better than that, and I'm not going to give this instruction, though it's warranted. Tell me why that question is certainly not admissible, but tell me why you think this line of questioning is. I need to make your offer of proof.
Sure. I believe that it's relevant through this witness because he knows of the reputation for violence. He knows the reputation for violence of Brian Albert Sr. He's known Brian Albert Sr. for more than 15 years. He knows Eddie Hernandez, who I have information, and he has information. He got into a physical altercation with Brian Albert and was beaten up by Brian Albert. He is aware that his friend, Kenny Berkowitz, was afraid of Brian Albert physically. And the reason all of that is relevant is because Brian Albert was in the home of a Boston police officer who we have evidence before this jury was involved in or had injuries consistent with the physical altercation. And that goes to a lack of, again, twofold, a lack of investigation by the Commonwealth, by their investigators, by the Massachusetts State Police. And it also goes to a lack of, again, twofold, a lack of investigation by the Commonwealth, by their investigators, by the third-party culpability. That is an undefined third-party culpability that is between and among Brian Albert, Colin Albert, and this witness.
Okay. So one of the reasons that third-party culprit evidence is very limited is so that it doesn't put the Commonwealth in the position you're putting him in right now. This is far too attenuated. If it had been closer than 5 years prior to this date, I'd have given it to you. It's too remote, okay?
We're really trying to force that Brian Albert Sr. is this big tough guy. You would see so many more fights, so many more arrests if he really was.
What do you mean that you would see so many more fights? And this guy's given the keys to the city by the Boston Police Department, right? Because of his work on these two major cases. They say, we don't care who you pick, but you're going to go be the elite squad. So he is given full power and authority. Somebody thinks that he deserves that power and authority. So I think he's seen as a tough guy for sure.
Yeah, I just don't think that he is the one that you want to portray someone that's going to kill someone that quickly after 30 minutes of drinking with him. I just don't think that this is relevant to that. I hung out with Samantha's good friend Anthony Cumia on Friday night. I never thought he, in a million years, would ever touch anybody. Yeah, but this was odd that all of a sudden, like a multimillionaire with a lot of money to lose and really isn't a physical tough guy would actually throw a punch or slap in self-defense.
There's a scumbag on the streets of New York.
There you go. There you go.
Fuck out of my face.
There you go. Why don't you take a walk, scumbag?
In self-defense.
Isn't that what we've been saying to you this whole time? Is that
Exactly.
okay? Just want to make sure that you were saying the same thing. I always have to remember that, like, nobody was trying to kill John. Like, the motive wasn't motive to kill. It was a motive to get in a drunken fight. And then something went terribly wrong so quickly. I just think that's important to remember when you're assigning motive. Like, it's not who had the motive to want John dead. It's who had the motive to want to be drunk like your friend and do something stupid. And I think that's a lot of the people that were at the bar and a lot of the people that were drinking that night.
You're 100% right. And that's a huge issue because, sure, Higgy had a motive, but that doesn't mean that Colin or Brian Albert couldn't have the instant motive where they just get so angry for whatever the reason and throw a punch and land it. Because, like you said, this is not a murder that was planned, and Brian Higgins did not want to murder John O'Keefe. They wanted to fight. But to your point, just because little Colin didn't have an instant motive or motive at all, doesn't mean that he didn't do it.
The texts were sporadic over those 9 days. I don't know if they would have stopped or they would have kept going.
Well, they didn't keep going, did they?
Well, John passed away.
You still could have kept texting. Like he said, well, John passed away. That's not a reason to stop texting Karen. He wasn't saying, like, I found out something terrible about Karen. She's like a cold-blooded killer. He's saying John passed away. That's why I stopped texting her.
I love the point that you picked up on, because the plausible argument for Higgins not texting Karen after that final text, John died, is that I'm not texting that bitch. She killed the cop. She killed my friend. But you're 100% right. That's not what he said here. He didn't even say that at all.
All right. So I was wondering again about the proffer, because if we have to do something with it.
We don't. That was my one question, and the court was very clear. Don't go there with Chief Berkowitz, so I am done.
Okay. So was Chief Berkowitz something to do with the proffer?
This is crazy. I'd never seen this before. Can we define what a proffer is in this context?
A proffer agreement is an agreement executed between the client and the government, limits the government's ability to use the client's statements. It needs to be distinguished quite sharply from a full-blown immunity agreement that prevents the government from bringing any charges. It is very much not that type of agreement. It's also very different from a plea agreement or a cooperation agreement, which is a totally different animal. If your client knowingly withholds material information from the government or otherwise is not completely truthful and candid during the proffer, the government may use proffer information against your client for any purpose. That's important. If your client is a witness in any proceeding and gives testimony that is materially different from any proffer information, the attorney for the government or opposing party may use proffer information in cross-examination or rebuttal.
And it's not clear if Alan Jackson was using the grand jury testimony or the actual proffer agreement meeting, which he had the full transcript of, in order to impeach Brian Higgins when he made inconsistent statements when he was testifying under oath.
The government may make derivative use of proffer information. That is, the government is free to use proffer information to pursue this or any other investigation. Let's say you're involved in a public corruption investigation and the government suspects you, being a government official, might have accepted bribes, and you go proffer with the government, and pursuant to your proffer agreement that you think protects you, you admit, yes, in fact, I did take a bribe from Mr. Smith, and I transferred the proceeds to my bank account in the Cayman Islands. Under the provision I just read, all the provisions in fact, the government cannot use your admission that you took a bribe against you at trial. But under the derivative use exception, what they can do is two things, at least. They can go question Mr. Smith, the bribor, and see what admissions he might be willing to make. And they can try to follow the money to your bank account in the Cayman Islands and try and subpoena those records or maybe even seize the funds.
Are they saying that a proffer is a statement that I can make that I cannot be held criminally liable for anything that I disclose here that's truthful?
Mm-hmm.
So what if I'm Brian Higgins and I say, I punched John during the proffer, I punched John and he hit the back of his head, and then I let him stay there. I left, and then Brian Albert called me at 2:22, and I told him to move the body at 3:45, which he did. Can I be prosecuted for anything that I just said?
I think that from what Lally said in the earlier one, where he's like, this is not what you guys think it is. I don't think it was like that type of like queen for a day proffer. It was more like, I always was under the impression it had to do with him using the federal kiosk to do his phone, and that he was like basically saying I committed a crime, but I guess it's not, because Berkowitz has something to do with it.
Yeah. Can we first define what the word proffer means? Does anybody know?
Proffer
Come on, you're a
definition. Proffer, verb, hold out something to someone for acceptance, offer. He proffered his resignation. Or noun, an offer or proposal. A federal proffer or queen for a day agreement is a written contract between a person under federal investigation and the prosecutors to provide truthful information in exchange for limited immunity.
If Brian Higgins admitted to everything here, could they use that against him? Or could they use other evidence besides just his testimony?
I think it does depend on the agreement on the front end.
Got you.
Risks: if you lie, omit information, or break the agreement, the government can use your statements against you.
Right. So I get that. So if Brian Higgins decided to tell the complete truth in this particular proffer, what would happen if he admitted to actually doing what he did?
So the reason for the federal investigation was to investigate the cops, right? So it wasn't to investigate the death of John O'Keefe. So
Right.
I'm guessing in that context, Higgins would have known that the proffer was specific to the investigative part of the equation and wouldn't have been offering.
Which does make it interesting if Berkowitz was like the subject of that, because if they're talking about the investigation, that's Berkowitz, a piece of it at least.
So some of the other things from the proffer that I know of, that Albert was drinking more than he was, like he does kind of throw him under the bus a little bit. So I think the context of this is like, yeah, even Chief Berkowitz was afraid of Brian Albert.
Can we get the proffer if it's a technical legal document, Corey?
Probably not.
Hey,
federal.
don't ever
I think Corey
underestimate
can
what
get
my woman
anything.
can do.
It's true.
They get so scared because I get some of the email correspondence. The second Corey starts giving them a deadline, it is hilarious what happens because now they know her reputation. She doesn't bluff at all. She literally told them, if I don't have it by 5 p.m. on this Friday, this is what I'm going to sue you for. These are the damages you will be paying me. Oh my God, they
awesome.
panic. At the time,
Amazing.
this was hilarious. The chief of police of Canton, the interim chief, calls her back. And at that time, we were both contemplating what to do. She called the guy back. She said he was the nicest guy in the world. And he wasn't bluffing at all. And then they sent all the documents. Yeah, she has them running around circles the second she ever threatens anything. They respect her like you would not believe. And rightfully so.
As they should.
As they should, absolutely. As I rack my brain, and Ms. Little knows probably better than I do, I don't think there is another portion where his statement and the proffer is the impeachment. It's all going to be the jury, which I know how to deal with. So I don't think I am in need to even address the proffer.
Because it would be wise for him to meet with his lawyer during lunch about this. I don't know how to communicate that to him. If you don't have a problem with Mr. Lally letting his lawyer know that this may be a topic.
I think that's exactly what I would suggest. If Mr. Lally would be kind enough to just let him know there could be an issue where Mr. Jackson wants to ask about a statement in the proffer, what are your thoughts about? I don't think I have to go there.
I'm at a disadvantage. I know nothing about the proffer other than there was one because this witness mentioned it a few times during the grand jury testimony.
Right.
Are you both aware of the nature of the proffer? Do you have the transcript?
We do. We have the interview, but as far as whatever the proffer was concerning or what the letter was, I don't know anything about that. What I do know is that in the federal system, proffer means something entirely different.
Well, the point is you have to be able to link it to his testimony here.
Right.
And for that, I would need to have a hearing. There are all sorts of problems of having a hearing like that in open court. So I just need to know that if you're saying...
Can I just...
Sure, talk quietly, Miss Little. Bev tells Liza Little to be quiet like 11 times in these transcripts. The quietest one there. Yeah, literally every time she opens her mouth, Bev is like, shut up.
Ms. Little was reminding me there is an issue that I will bring up that was brought up in the proffer, but it was also brought up in the context of the grand jury, which that's all I'll use. I don't need to relate it back.
Right. So is it in the context of an impeachment, a prior inconsistent statement, or I need to know if it has to do with the proffer.
It does not have to deal with the proffer, no.
Okay.
It's just an inconsistent statement about what happened inside 34 Fairview, his observations.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Your Honor, just to be clear, for the record, my concern is that pertains to the proffers is because I believe there's uniqueness as to how proffers work in the federal system. There's no way for a witness to explain what a proffer is without making reference to the U.S. Attorney's Office and all of that.
Which is why I interjected when you asked a question about his assignment, whether he could answer that, because again, I have no idea about the proffer and I don't know if it was related, but it sounds like the defendant does not intend to get into that. Correct, Mr. Jackson?
I do not know.
Okay.
I've gone as far as I'm going to go on any of that.
They're all with us. Nobody knows what this proffer is. Nobody knows what a federal proffer is. Nobody knows anything.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah, like they had no clue. They're like, I think the federal proffer is different than the other, but shouldn't they know?
Yes.
But I would love to analyze his transcript, and it's there somewhere. A written transcript of the interview between Brian Higgins and the investigators, it looks like.
Clearly, whatever the proffer was, because Alan Jackson and Yannetti have seen it and read the transcript, there wasn't a ton that they were pulling from it. It doesn't seem like it was that juicy. It just sounds exciting.
Probably right. Like, they had that whole waterfall video, and they covered everything in the first trial with it. They definitely didn't miss anything.
You're right. They might have missed something. That's a good point. He's fair. It's fair.
Corey said, I don't think there is any universe in which we will see a grand jury transcript.
What about the Proffer transcript? Because in the Adelson case, we saw the Proffer videos and you were able to see it.
See, I think that's a different type of proffer where they're making a proffer to get like a deal with a sentencing deal.
It is very interesting that Brian Patrick Higgins, old Higgy Bear, was offered the ability to proffer any information and most likely entered into a proffer agreement, which we learned today there is a difference. And if there is anyone on this entire earth that could obtain the transcript of Brian Higgins' proffer interview, it is the Queen, Corey Hopkins. But no matter what, we will never, ever stop producing these videos until the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
is brought to justice.
This crime was very simple to solve because it took place within a very small area over a very short period of time with a very limited amount of suspects. One or more of these 10 people has to be the killer of John O'Keefe. That's how easy this is. Once you remove the kids and the McCabe's, you're down to just 3 suspects: Brian Albert, Higgy Bear, and Chloe. Since Chloe's a good dog, she didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
I'm a good dog. I didn't do it.
So that leaves just 2 suspects, Brian Albert and Higgy Bear. But of the 2 Brians, only one had the means, motive, and opportunity to kill John O'Keefe. And that's our old cuddly but violent Higgy Bear. Once we had all the facts and didn't jump to conclusions, do you see how easy it was to solve this crime?